Ascension is the conscious participation in our own evolution. It happens in distinct phases of consciousness, known as waves. So today I'm going to be talking all about the first wave of ascension. And at the end of this video, I will share with you the unique challenges that the first wave of ascension are here to overcome. In my video, Stages of Spiritual Awakening, the second phase of ascension, I go over what the unique challenges are within the second wave of ascension. They have more of a rough ride, and it's not that at the first wave of ascension everything is all fine and dandy. It's just that in the second wave of ascension there's a lot more dark nights of the soul and deeper levels of reality to understand, to come to terms with, and to learn all about in order to eventually be able to transmute and to take actions at a higher level of vibration and consciousness. In the first wave of ascension, we have already gone through the second wave of ascension. So we've already gone through the darkest elements of this reality and this matrix. In fact, there is no way to correctly step into the first wave of ascension without going through the second wave of ascension, or else we would be spiritual bypassing in some form, and that wouldn't even make us a vibrational equivalent to the first wave of ascension. So you could look at the second wave of ascension as the mental body's awakening. All of our synapses are reorganizing in this stage of consciousness. We know things, but we know it mainly at the mental level. It hasn't immersed itself into the different dimensions and facets of the entire mind-body-soul complex. Whereas with the first wave of ascension, we are in the phase of consciousness known as embodiment. You cannot separate the concept of embodiment from the first wave of ascension. They are one and the same. And what we are embodying in this phase of consciousness is the concept of our higher self. You could think of the higher self as a fractal of source, but at a higher dimensional plane of consciousness than the one that we are at. So it's holding space for our incarnation and multiple incarnations of this higher self. So when we're talking about embodying our higher self, and that being the first wave of ascension, what we're actually talking about is being able to expand our consciousness enough to be able to hold more of our higher self's essence within our own consciousness, which is anchoring higher dimensional, or one could even say multidimensional consciousness into our current avatar within this lifetime. Now that might sound like a really tall order, but keep in mind that we are only ever responsible for aligning with truth or aligning with our higher self, universal consciousness, at the capacity of the realm we're operating in. We're not responsible for anything outside of the best we can do and the highest potential within our level of reality. Knowing that when we are embodying our higher self, we're embodying our higher self to the capacity that this realm can offer. We're not responsible for anything outside of that, meaning that even if we were to fully embody our higher self in this lifetime, that would still only mean that is probably not even all of our higher self in a grander picture outside of this dimension and outside of this realm. So the first wave of ascension has a lot of themes going on, since we are wrapping up major cycles, not just in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes as well that belong to our soul stream. We're more internally focused, whereas with the second wave of ascension, they are more externally focused. And it's not that the first wave of ascension is solely internally focused. It's just that there is more self-awareness and self-healing that's going on in the first wave of ascension in order to allow stronger levels of embodiment. The first wave of ascension knows that victimization is very real and that humanity has been caught in a victim-perpetrator cycle. So they are not at all in denial of the concept of there being victims. However, the first wave of ascension has stepped out of the victim mentality. So you have a victim mentality, and then you have very real and objective victimization. These two concepts are different from one another. The first wave of ascension is stepping out of the victim mentality. That is not denying that there's actual victims that are a part of a victim-perpetrator cycle. Both the blessing and curse in this phase of consciousness is, as we are embodying our higher self, we are also embodying source, since our higher self is a fractal of Source. And that's extraordinarily overwhelming for our physical unit, since our physical unit can only create so much storage capacity. And that's why there's so many mystery illnesses going on, especially with people in the first wave of consciousness. So what this all adds up to is alchemy, because we're having embodiment take place in the earth element. And we're bringing in all of the different elements. So this is the phase where we understand already, we're very well aware that we're not just human. And we also know that our other aspects of ourselves, whether they're off planet or whether they're in other dimensions, wherever they may be, are also streaming into and becoming embodied in the earth realm. So we are neither only exclusively earth, meaning human, and we are neither only exclusively air or spirit, any of the other elements that aren't so worldly within this realm. This means we're holding space for so many different elements and aspects to our beingness. And the ego can get caught up only being identified as a human, just like we can become so egoically attached to being non-human. So the alchemy that is taking place in this phase of consciousness is the embodiment and the integration of all of our different elements and multidimensional aspects. So another way of looking at the first wave of ascension, besides calling it the phase of embodiment, is also looking at it as becoming a multidimensional being, since that's what embodying our higher self would end up as. Becoming a multidimensional being means coming to terms with aspects of our soul stream or of our higher self that we normally would not even recognize or want to identify with. And that's why the second wave of ascension, and even just the exoteric realm in general, views a lot of the things going on in the first wave of consciousness through a lens of complete fear or just not being able to understand it in a clear context. And that's because the first wave of ascension is going through a massive embodiment, meaning a massive integrating of things that normally would be considered really dark. Because as we're doing the inner work to heal in this phase of consciousness, we understand that we're just not healing for our own personal individual soul stream. We're doing healing for a massive conglomerate of different energies that our higher self is extended into. Meaning if we have aspects of us that are a part of Orion, we might not want to come to terms with that. We might only be comfortable owning the parts of our higher self or the parts of our own being that are more angelic in nature. Following that line of logic, in the first wave of ascension, we have also developed a much more mature version of what this concept of source or God is, meaning that we understand at this level of consciousness that source isn't just all angelic. Source isn't just all one thing of anything. And because we're able to handle this level of communion with all that is, we're actually able to align ourselves stronger with truth. The levels before this are too afraid to be able to grasp such a mature concept of source. So they will always keep their divinity separate from their humanity. In the first wave of ascension, we are gradually merging our divinity with our humanity until we've created union. And when we've created union, we're able to understand concepts, receive knowledge, have a larger scope of wisdom and insight into the multiverse, because our ego is no longer stubbornly fixed on being a human earthling. It can now expand into more love. So you could look at all of the assistance that we're receiving from Source and the universe as the solar flares, all of the cosmic energies that we are being bombarded with, as the things that are helping us integrate all of this higher knowing, all of these higher energies that are expanding our cellular body and being able to reorganize and rewire us. And you could look at us as the receivers of these cosmic rays, of these higher dimensional energies. And if there's no receivers, meaning there's no conduits here in the earth realm for the embodiment phase, then the energies won't be able to anchor into this dimension because there's not enough receivers. There's not enough reciprocal units or conduits that are able to feed those higher dimensional light codes and solar flares into the earth realm. So when we have people in the first wave of ascension, what they're typically doing when we're talking about embodiment and multidimensional beingness is also, in addition to that, being able to anchor that consciousness in the form of light codes into the earthly realm, which is why it's so damn tiring for many of us to be a part of the first wave of ascension. How many times have we understood a concept and yet it hits us deeper every time we circle back to that same concept and we see something from a larger vantage point, from a deeper insight, and then it goes around again, almost as if it's in a spiral staircase. The first wave of ascension understands that we are on an ascending trajectory, meaning we will integrate more and more of a truth or a concept or a theme at a deeper level each time it's reintroduced into our environment. And so because of this, we still take action in the world, but it's done in a far more conscious and aligned space because of how self-aware we are of the ascending trajectory of our own lessons and humanity's lessons as well. So we are the world, and the world is ourselves, and we are source, and source is ourselves. And we have multi-dimensions to our own being and multiple aspects to our higher self, which makes all of this pretty much a group consciousness. And that's why all of the scriptures really started off by saying, we exist, or we are here. And then they got distorted and tangled into I. It's just I. I am here, and I am the word. And we're like, I thought you said we. No, not we. It's just I am here, I. And that's the ego coming in and distorting the concept of source, which at this point is a group consciousness. Group consciousness meaning it is a hypostatic symphony of thought, sentience, will, that all create what we call mind. I'm not a big fan of all that is being summed up as mind, but know that that's a hermetic term. That doesn't mean the same thing as what we subscribe to being mind. So what we essentially mean when we're talking about the universe and the multiverse being this mental construct, it's not coming from the entity of mind. What it's coming from is a hypostatic symphony, meaning a group consciousness of different dimensions, different parts that are figuring out their place in existence, their eternal nature, the permanence and impermanence, the in-breath and out-breath of their being. And through the embodiment, the unprogramming, the healing, and the integration that takes place in this crucial phase of consciousness known as the first wave of ascension, we can begin to understand that when we're talking about the universe or the multiverse being mental, all that really means is that once we have expanded so much to the capacity that this realm offers to receive love, to receive wisdom, consciousness in alignment with truth, that now there is no oppositional force. There is only harmony. And within harmony, you can create anything. And when you're vibrating at that level of embodiment of love, none of the spiritual systems or belief systems that are vibrating at a lower level than that apply to you. That's why some belief systems are like, you're going to do this and then that's going to happen. Or you're still asleep in the dream, you haven't breached the pleroma. Or you're in the false light, which is very real, but you're operating above it. All of these different spiritual systems are real within their own right, but when you're operating and vibrating at a level above that, now you have tapped into and you have accessed what it truly means that the universe is mind. In my video, How to Evolve Spiritually for Self-Mastery, I talk about there being two of everything. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That video deserved an Oscar, or at the very least, a Nobel Peace Prize. It received neither. But in that video, I talk about there being an exalted and a detrimental form of every energy. Now, this exalted and detrimental form we also know from astrology. But within this, there is always going to be a detrimental aspect to anything, including oneness. And the first wave of ascension has a unique challenge, whereas when we come into this level of embodiment, we're also experiencing something known as oneness, or what is more popularly referred to as Christ consciousness. Well, one of the detriments within oneness is its shadow side, which is solipsism. Solipsism is the belief that we, the soul entity, is the only thing that can be proved as real and is the only one that's actually experiencing this reality. Now, we're going to come in and out of solipsism as we're expanding. But the issue is when we get stuck in the belief system and it acts almost like a barricade or a block to being able to expand once again out of it. When we are experiencing this idea that we are the only thing that's real, and so that means that other people aren't suffering in the world, or that it's all, a part of an illusion, that we are hallucinating, that is straight up just going to happen sometimes, especially when we are expanding our consciousness, because when we are expanding our consciousness, we are in chaos, and chaos is experienced as confusion. And when we're in a state of solipsism, we're open, we're questioning things more. So that's going to be a part of when we're expanding. Treat it as such. Know that when we're having solipsism come into the picture, that instead of taking it for real, go, oh, I'm just expanding right now. I'm actually receiving an upgrade to my body, mind, soul, and to my nervous system. And treating it as such is going to allow us to navigate through that while we're embodying that higher consciousness. Because what solipsism is a deep knowing that we are all one. It's just in a confused state of actually believing there's only one. There is so much more to be said about the first wave of ascension. So let me know in the comments on what areas you'd like me to focus more on in future videos. I hope this has helped you spiral out. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakening. See you next time.